Permian seafloor. The most important thing it tells us with respect to the Grand Canyon is that this area had to be near sea level when these rocks formed. Now it's 7,000 feet above sea level on the rim of the Grand Canyon. So something had to happen. Either the sea had to fall 7,000 feet, and we're pretty sure that didn't happen, or this landscape had to be uplifted 7,000 feet. We're pretty sure that happened.
250 million years ago, the canyon starts to form as a result of a collision between the Pacific and North American plates. They collide with such force, the North American plate thrusts more than 2 miles upward. What was once seabed rises over a period of 15 million years to form a vast plateau far above sea level. It stays that way for millions of years until it is transformed by water erosion. Six million years ago, several hundred miles south of the canyon, plate movements open up the Gulf of California to the sea. For the first time, small streams in the Rocky Mountains could empty into the ocean.
So if we're starting a stream at 14,000 feet in the Rocky Mountains and carving down to sea level, and the Grand Canyon just happens to be in the way, the Grand Canyon's going to get cut out.
These streams merge to form what is now called the Colorado River. It cuts down through the land, heading toward the Gulf of California.
It took a river to carve the canyon. The water has carved down through the rocks layer by layer by layer, removing material out of the canyon and leaving the great void that sits behind me.
The Grand Canyon is a testament to the awesome power of the continents in shaping our world. Back on our journey, tracing the birth and death of the continents, it is now 20 million years ago. 2,500 miles south of the Grand Canyon, another plate collision is about to take place. The map of the modern world is almost complete. At this time, water flowing freely between the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans still separates North and South America. Over many millions of years, the Pacific plate begins sliding under the Caribbean plate. The pressure causes underwater volcanoes to erupt. Some explode with such ferocity that they create a range of small islands between North and South America. Over the next 17 million years, ocean currents deposit sediment in gaps between these new islands. Gradually, the sediment builds up and compresses to form land bridges between the islands. 3 million years ago, the Isthmus of Panama, a narrow strip of land, finally joins North and South America. It separates the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. The flow of water between the two stops, and ocean currents must take new routes. This causes yet another change in the climate of our planet. It changes the movement of warm seas around the globe, disrupting weather patterns, possibly pushing the planet into an ice age. Many species are wiped out. The continents as we know them today are formed, creating the nice, hospitable environment for human civilization to evolve and thrive on planet Earth. But how long will it last? The forces that power plate tectonics are still active and will tear our continents apart once again. They will build a new world, one that may trigger another mass extinction and push humanity to the brink of annihilation. A view from space reveals Earth's continents as we know them today. There are 7 in total, but some are separated by a political divide rather than a geographical one. Africa-Eurasia is a supercontinent comprising of Africa, Europe, and Asia. It stretches from the Siberian Plateau in Russia to the Cape of Good Hope in South Africa. A spectacular route across 3 continents incorporating dramatic climate change, vivid scenery, and diverse cultures. However, Africa-Eurasia isn't the only supercontinent on the planet. Because the Panama Isthmus links North and South America together, they too can be thought of as one vast landmass. And if the Bering Strait between Russia and Alaska were to freeze over, it would be possible to walk from Cape Horn in South America to the Cape of Good Hope in South Africa. A journey of around 25,000 miles. But this won't always be possible, for powerful forces deep below the surface continue to send the continents hurtling across the globe. A process that started at their birth 4.4 billion years ago, and one which will continue long into their future.
What we're observing at the moment is only a snapshot of the Earth's global cycle that has been undergoing for the last 4.5 billion years probably, and will be undergoing, even if we're not around anymore.
The global continental cycle has another impact on our world. It causes many natural disasters. Plate movement creates stress points, which lead to volcanic eruptions. As continents split apart, instability at the plate junctions causes earthquakes that rip apart whole communities. This one, on October 8, 2005, in Pakistan-ruled Kashmir, killed nearly 75,000 people and left up to 3 million homeless. And when plates subduct into the earth, their death throes produce devastating waves. The 2004 Indonesian tsunami is just one demonstration of the terrifying power unleashed when plates move. Such natural disasters are part of the continental cycle, and they're not going to stop.
Plates moving is something we have to live with. There's nothing we can do about it. It's going to happen. There are going to be big earthquakes in California. There's going to be a lot of damage. There's going to be loss of life.
In recent years, it seems as though natural disasters, powered by the movement of the continents, have been on the rise. But what we are witnessing is an increase in awareness, rather than an increase in the number or severity of natural disasters.
I think what we're really seeing here is a very raised consciousness of the public. With instant communication abilities, much more publicity is given to volcanic eruptions and earthquakes.
We are observers to only a very short period of the life of the Earth. If we could monitor earthquakes and volcanic activity caused by plate movements over millions of years, we would see a very different picture.
When you look at something over 10 years, you might have 10 major earthquakes. The next 10 years you might not have any, but that's not significant. It just is related to the short period of time that you're making the observation at. When you start looking at hundreds, thousands, and millions of years, all that averages out.
It's impossible to predict exactly when the next disaster will occur. But it is possible to predict where it will happen. The plate boundaries. Map the location of earthquakes and volcanoes, and they line up with the cracks between plates. Plot where these plates will move over the next tens of millions of years, and the future looks bleak for many of the world's cities. So what will our world look like in the future? 50 million years from now, the Atlantic Ocean will widen, pushing New York further away from North Africa. Meanwhile, in the southern hemisphere, Australia will be on a collision course with Southeast Asia, and in Europe, Africa will head north, closing the Mediterranean Sea. A new mountain range will form where Italy and Greece once stood. Known as the Mediterranean Mountains, they will be as big as the Himalayas, extending from Spain across southern Europe, through the Middle East, and into Asia. 100 million years in the future, and the power of continental movements will render the surface of the Earth unrecognizable. The Atlantic Ocean will continue to widen, but a subduction zone will form along its western shoreline. The first sign of it can be seen today in the Caribbean, the Puerto Rico Trench. This trench will grow north and south along the east coast of North and South America. This vast subduction zone will consume the Atlantic Ocean, dragging Europe and Africa back toward the Americas. 250 million years in the future, intergalactic explorers returning to their home planet will find a world very different to the one in their records. There will no longer be 7 continents, but one gigantic landmass containing most of the land on Earth. They could find it a barren, frozen world. The explorers search for the remains of our cities, but when Europe and America collide, any cities along the coastlines will be gradually destroyed.
The geological future of New York is going to be rather traumatic. In the long term, New York is going to be at the site of a continental collision. North America and Europe are going to collide with one another and produce a distinctive suite of rocks which will eventually be crumpled between the two continents as they collide.
New York and its neighbors will be crushed and buried beneath the surface, leaving no more than a few remains.
In the future, geologists will be able to find remains of New York City trapped in the rocks themselves, either buildings or plastic bottles or old autos and their parts. All of these things will be incorporated into the fossil record and will be recognizable to a future geologist who knows what she or he is looking for.
Because of its similarities to past supercontinents, this future landmass is called Pangaea Ultima, the final Pangaea. Nearly all the landmasses in the world will be joined together. Pangaea Ultima will probably experience climate extremes, freezing winters and scorching summers. This deadly weather could have devastating effects on all life on Earth.
The implications for the human race are interesting to speculate about. Certainly, the disposition of the continents over time will affect Earth's climate, and that will in turn have an influence on which organisms survive, which go extinct, and could be a factor in future mass extinctions.
The world we know is inching slowly toward its own destruction.
The processes that shape the surface of the Earth are never going to change. We're going to have earthquakes, we're going to have volcanoes, we're going to have tsunamis and hurricanes, regardless of whether humans inhabit the planet. And so the planet will always be here, probably. Plate tectonics will operate for the foreseeable few 100 million years. The question is whether humans will be here to witness it or not.
But even Pangaea Ultima might not be the end of the story. The forces that created it may eventually rip it apart and start the cycle of death and rebirth again. But by then, the impact of colliding continents could have been too much for our species. With our cities destroyed and the climate severe, we may have already left our planet in search of a safer home.